Welcome back to Small Spark Theory. Happy New Year to those of you who are listening to these podcasts in chronological order. We're actually now at the 2-year point. It's 2 years ago that we started this podcast. So I thought it might just be worth reflecting on what it was that we were trying to do, what the mission was when we started recording these episodes, and thinking about what Small Spark Theory really means. And from my point of view, I'd always seen that sustained new business success was really down to a myriad of factors. So it's not one great thing. It's not one brilliant new business person or one kick-ass marketing plan. It's actually a whole load of small but nonetheless important factors that all need to be working really well. And we have to be paying attention to all of those things to make sure that we can improve our chances, particularly that we can sustain that kind of new business success. I think, I liken it to running a marathon. You wouldn't just go out and run a marathon without doing the right kind of training, having the right hydration, the right nutrition, even the right socks. You've got to think of all of the component parts to be able to get the right performance. And really, new business is no different to that. So we're going to start this year and this episode by actually addressing probably one of the areas, certainly it's an area that I get asked about all the time, which is sending new business emails or making new business approaches. It's an area that lots of people struggle with, but arguably, it's probably one of the biggest areas for marginal gains. If you can make improvements there, then you can improve your overall pipeline and you can see some measurable success in terms of winning new business. So, our expert today is the brilliant Kimi Gilbert, who is head of training at the Future Factory. Regular listeners will know we had Alex and Dan from Future Factory talking about lead generation in more general terms last year. I think it was episode 4. So I'm delighted to have Kimi here. As I said, Kimi heads up the training for Future Factory and in particular runs a really successful course on writing new business emails. So she is our expert witness for the day. Welcome, Kimi.
Thank you for that very kind introduction, Lucy. And I have to say, I feel like the pressure is really on today because I know you're an expert when it comes to new business emails yourself. So,
Well, you say that. It's been a long time since I was writing new business emails all the time. So, for those listeners that don't know, I used to work in a new business agency back in the 90s and over the years have done a lot of lead generation. But when I have clients asking me about how to write their new business emails, I'll give them a couple of tips, but I'll usually send them in your direction because you have a team who are doing this every day. Intensively. They're doing this every day. So they're learning and they're honing their techniques all the time. Right?
That is true. It's a team of 40 people currently. As Lucy said, I'm the Director of Training and Development. So my role's kind of split between two things. So yes, with that team of 40, I'm training them up in the art of writing new business emails, how they should be conducting their research, when they're actually going to pick up the phones and do business calls, which I think we're going to touch upon a little bit today, maybe a bit later on.
Yeah.
So partially I'm doing that. And then, yes, delivering the training program that we have. So currently we train about 200 agencies a year in all aspects of new business. But to be honest, Future Factory is most well known for the lead generation side of what we do. So I'm really kind of a new business email geek and a self-proclaimed geek, and I'm happy to be one. So yeah, it's great to be here with you today to chat through this.
Oh, well, you're so welcome. Tell us a little bit about your career before Future Factory.
Right. So at Future Factory, I've been here 7 years. Mm-hmm. I was the first employee, and that was with Dan and Alex when they started the company. We were actually working out of Dan's living room in Lewisham for some time, and it was in the summer, and we had a lot of good fun. So now to be with a team of 40, it's quite cool to have seen that progression.
Yeah.
One of the things about Future Factory, which is quite unique, is we don't hire above. So what I mean by that is I started as an account manager, doing these calls, sending these emails day in and day out, and then kind of climbed the ranks to be the training director. And then prior to that, I actually worked with Dan and Alex at another new biz consultancy. Funnily enough, it just occurred to me the other day that consultancy was based just down the road from where we are now.
Oh,
so we were at London Bridge, then Future Factory was started, went to Shoreditch, now back to London Bridge. So it's all come full circle. Yeah.
Yes.
But then, before that, I was teaching in Austria. for 2 years. So I think what I like about Future Factory and what I'm doing currently is I have a real passion for teaching, and getting to combine a passion for teaching with a passion for new business is just makes for a really great job. I have a lot of fun doing it.
Ideal. So for a lot of people, the fear of writing new business emails is real. And I understand that, because there's a lot on the line. You kind of feel like you don't want to, it's making that first impression. You don't want to mess it up. And there's that horrible feeling of when you send off an email and then you just kind of, there's tumbleweed, you don't hear anything. How long has the course now been running that you do for new business emails?
So winning new business via email, it's our most popular course out of the 10 that we run. We've been doing it for 5 years.
For 5 years. Okay, so there's been a lot of people that have gone through.
A lot of people.
Okay. Yeah. What are the most common mistakes that you tend to see cropping up?
If I had to say, I think the most common mistake is agencies making their new biz emails all about themselves and not really tailoring what they're saying to the specific individual and the actual company. So one of the things I encourage everybody who's writing new business emails to do is actually, after you write it, read it aloud. It can be quite telling. If you're reading it aloud and you realize that you're blabbering a lot about yourself and a lot about your agency, then you'll know, okay, it's time to go back to the drawing board, actually. Because why would someone, when you're contacting them out of the blue, want to hear all about you?
Oh, that's good advice. That's really good advice. Because I guess if you're imagining that you're saying it out loud in a conversation, then that's a good leveler, isn't it? Think, actually, I would never normally say that if I was speaking it aloud.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's a really good exercise to do. So that's something we encourage absolutely everybody who comes to our course, and you know, indeed our own team of account managers who are doing these emails day in, day out, as you said earlier. People will read them aloud. It's kind of like, you know, I don't know if this has happened to you, or even if maybe you've done this yourself, but when you've been on holiday and you pull out your phone and say, look at all of my photos, kind of thing, when no one's asked. It's kind of similar to that. It is. So then and I have to say, actually, thinking about it, I probably have done that to friends and family and unsuspecting coworkers. So it's kind of similar, and we don't want to do that.
Okay. So what are some of the other mistakes?
One of the other biggest mistakes, and it's kind of related actually, is that people write emails that are far too long, just way too long. And I think we can all say that, thinking about our personal lives or indeed professional, we read emails on our phone, don't we?
Yeah.
So one of the other tips that I have for people who are listening would be, once you've drafted your email, send it to yourself and have a look on your phone. If you're scrolling for ages and ages, as sometimes is the case, then you know, again, okay, time to go back to the drawing board. I need to trim some of the fat.
Yeah, okay. I think generally emails can just be too long.
Absolutely right, yeah. And the whole idea, again, to kind of use, I guess, I don't know if this is appropriate to say, or you can edit it out if not, but I'm thinking of kind of the first date analogy and different things. Maybe it's one of those things where you want to pique someone's interest, you want to show a little bit of leg, but maybe not go all the way.
But it's the same. It's the same actually about new business meetings as well.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't expect to marry them on the first meeting.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're just moving them into your network. You're
exactly.
You're not kind of asking to marry them on the first date.
There you go. And I think the analogy works in both contexts.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So emails that are all about yourself are a bit of a no-no, and emails that are too long. What are the other mistakes?
Emails being generic. So another tip I'd have for your listeners would be, if you finish writing an email and you realize it could be sent to the head of marketing at Sainsbury's and the head of marketing at BMW, you know you've done something wrong. So that's another really good tip, and it can be quite sobering. And I have to admit, I've done emails like that myself in the past. I think we all have, but it's a really easy thing to do, to be like, Sainsbury's, BMW, you know, it has to be really bespoke. It can't be a blanket approach, because cut and paste, it's easy to see through, and it doesn't work. It doesn't get results.
Yeah. I actually had an email. I had a new business email from a new business agency this week trying to sell me new business services. Clearly, that agency hadn't looked at my website.
Yeah. Did you respond, or did you just kind of?
I let the first one go, and then I got the follow-up.
Right.
Have you got time to chat? Did you get my email? And at that point, I wrote back and said, I think you might want to check. I don't think I should be on your list.
Did you get a response?
Yes.
Kind of tail between the legs kind of thing.
I mean, gosh, no excuses. So sorry. But that shows immediately. It shows when somebody doesn't know the kind of business that you are, and you've just had a generic email, or they've bought a list and they've sent something out without any thought.
I mean, I'll be honest, it takes a lot more time to write a handcrafted, well-researched email, but you're going to get so much back in terms of the returns. And also for the people who are doing these emails, it's going to be so much more enjoyable to write an email that is well-crafted rather than just doing a cut-and-paste job. That's boring. No one really wants to do that. If you're actually making the effort to connect the dots between your experience as an agency, the trajectory of the person you're getting in touch with, the trajectory of their career, what they've done in the past, what they might find interesting, and of course what they're actually focusing on now at their current brand, that's going to be a lot more enjoyable, and you will get a lot more in return.
So obviously the world is changed. The world has changed a lot since I was doing new business prospecting, and in fact, when I started, we didn't even have emails, and that shows how long ago it was. But I'm interested.
That's really cool, I have to say. I think it's cool. I have a lot of respect for. Yes, you were a pioneer.
Many things. I'm not quite sure pioneer is the right word, but I'm thinking back then. That was before email. We used to send out letters with show reels, and we used to send out brochures. And obviously, back then, the biggest barrier to getting through to people was a PA. Now, obviously, things have changed quite a lot. Then it was voicemail that was the barrier. Now, obviously, emails are quite easy, but people get overloaded, and there's lots of talk about there's not just email, but we're bombarded, whether it's Slack or Instant Messenger or WhatsApp. We've got so many different communication channels. I'm interested to know from the team in general how they find email as a tool and how they balance that with the telephone, or if there's even a trend for going back to kind of sending hard copy stuff in the post.
I think you're right, Lucy. It's funny. I was just thinking as you were speaking, about some of the interesting examples I've seen in my time at Future Factory of what agencies are actually sending out in the post. And I do feel like things have come full circle because just, how many emails do we get every single day for personal reasons, professional reasons? And I have the rather sobering statistic that your average marketing decision maker at a big brand in the UK will receive about 200 to 300 cold new business emails a week. Now, that's not to put your listeners off, because I really do believe that the majority of those emails are going to fall into that trap of being too long, being all about the agency. So
being
again,
generic, yeah.
Exactly right. So what you were saying about marginal gains, doing a couple of these things right means you're automatically going to stand out. But in any case, decision makers are getting too many emails. So in terms of things that you could be sending out, I mean, I've seen everything from giant jammy dodgers going out in the post. I know an agency that sent out a bunch of the Compare the Market meerkats.
Right.
Which is a fantastic thing because you can't really bin a meerkat, so, you're going to catch someone's attention.
No animals were harmed in the campaign.
Absolutely right. Other kind of things is I came across an audio branding agency I was doing some training with last year, and they actually sent out vinyl because of the connection with music. And if certainly anytime you can establish a real connection between what it is your agency does and the thing that you're posting out, it'll be a lot more meaningful than sending something random out in the post.
So I guess, again, though, it comes down to being authentic. I guess the same with your email. It's not just a gimmick for the sake of it. It has to have a message behind it, and it has to be relevant and authentic.
Exactly right. You mentioned letters earlier, actually, and how you used to post things out that way. I think letters are actually a fantastic thing to do. We've had a lot of success doing that at the Future Factory, sending out letters to prospective agencies. It's very cheap. It's similar to other things. You're not going to necessarily get a response just from sending out a letter. But if you follow up with a phone call, that's the winning combination, really. Even with the meerkats or whatever, people will be really pleased to receive these things. Does that mean they're going to write an email to you or pick up the phone to meet? No, but you're more likely to get through to that person if you pick up the phone, if you send a follow-up email. So I think, again, things done in pairs, you get much bigger returns and better results.
And do you think, generally speaking, with the team who are all trained by you on how to send these brilliant emails, do most of them manage to, I don't know whether you've got any kind of data around whether they manage to get most traction email on its own or a combination of email and phone? Does it tend to be more email and phone?
We tracked this recently, actually. It's a combination of email and phone.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely a combination is we get the best results that way.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah. So for agencies that are doing this themselves, obviously they need to come along to your course, which we'll give all the details to later. But knowing that it's not just sending the email and then hoping that actually that's just one part of the process and then being able to follow that up on the phone.
Absolutely. And I have another little stat for you in case it's helpful. We get much better results for our agencies sending second emails. So we'll get a much higher response rate when we send the second email.
Okay.
So I can kind of chat you through the process pretty quickly. Because
that would be great.
The thing is, so when I've looked at all the agencies we've worked with and our results and things, it's definitely when you have a really strict process that we get the best results for our clients. So the process would be you send your new business email, follow up a few times on the phone that week, and then exactly 1 week later, send a follow-up email.
Okay.
And usually what I'd say is, make it shorter than the first.
Yeah.
And make it different from the first as well, which goes back to what we were saying earlier. If you've put all of your information in one email, and often agencies have a lot of interesting things to say. If you get really excited and say, we've got this marketing thought piece and we've done this bit of work, then what are you going to talk about in your second email? So it's okay to keep things up your sleeve.
Yeah.
But definitely you need to stick to that process. I think that people reap the most rewards if they're patient, if they're diligent, and just do your best not to get discouraged, because these are busy people you're contacting. But I know, and I can say this with certainty, a lot of our team have actually been praised by decision makers who said, you know what, let's have a meeting because you were persistent, politely persistent. But
that's good. So send an email, follow it up a couple of times on the phone, and then if you haven't got any response, so presumably for your second email, you would forward the first one with a little shorter intro, a little shorter email at the front.
It depends on the email, so it requires really being very honest with yourself. So if you've written a really beautifully crafted, well thought out email, then by all means, a week later, forward that email and say, hey, so-and-so, I don't know if you happen to see this email, probably slipped through the cracks, would be great to get your thoughts, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But be really honest with yourself, because again, we've all written emails that perhaps weren't the best. Then in these cases, you need to think, right, this is my second chance to actually write something better, write something different.
Yeah.
One of the things we talk to our team a lot about is developing a different tone of voice, different style. So, a lot of the creative agencies we're working with, they're very happy for us to do something a little bit unusual.
Now that's really interesting, because the tone of voice thing, I think, is critical. Now, we were talking in the October episode when we were talking about managing the client or prospect experience, and we talked to Nick Phipps from Rawnet, and he specialises in customer-centric digital experiences, and they talk about humanising experiences. And there's something about the tone of voice and trying to be authentic and make it more of a human conversation than a corporate conversation, which I think is quite interesting.
Absolutely.
And I think there's something about, if you are having a conversation with a prospect, you tend to speak as yourself, but that something happens to people when they then start writing it down. They go into kind of corporate speak.
It's true.
Do you see that?
Absolutely right. And I do think, again, we were talking about reading an email aloud. That should help with that. But it's interesting you should bring up how we're different when we're actually having a conversation with someone. So another tip I would say is, when you're writing your email, the best emails I've seen are the ones that kind of alternate. In other words, one line about the agency, one line about the brand. One line about the agency, one line about the brand. I think because it's quite similar to an actual conversation, it feels a lot warmer that way.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what would be your 3 top tips for any agencies that are out there, apart from the fact that obviously we'll send them along to the course? What would be your top tips where they can start making some marginal gains on their new business emails?
Okay, number 1, and I did think hard about these. Number 1 would just to be yourself. I mean, that might sound awfully trite. It's something that mothers say to their children before going off to school. But if you're not going to be yourself, this is the first contact someone's going to have with your business. If you can't be yourself then and there, it's going to create an awful lot of confusion if the person agrees to meet and then they're meeting with someone who, so what I'm saying is, if you're naturally quite a reserved, conservative person in real life, don't go sending a really jokey, offbeat kind of email. And the reverse is also true. If you're quite a creative, eccentric person, don't be afraid to show that in the email.
Yeah. Okay, good. So authenticity.
Number 2 would be to actually do your homework on the company and the contact and make sure you have a really strong reason for getting in touch. This is absolutely essential. Every email you send off needs to have those words. The reason I'm getting in touch is, because it defines the way that the contact actually reads your email. So reasons for getting in touch should be genuine, and really the best ones connect the dots between the agency's experience and the brand's current focus and activity.
Okay.
So just do your homework. Spend the time to do your homework.
Okay.
And then number 3, which people always ask me about this in the course, when's the best time to send emails? So I have a bit of a tip around that, which would be to try sending your emails at the end of the day, early in the week, and never, ever, ever on a Friday.
Okay, so why at the end of the day?
At the end of the day, what we found, Tuesday, by the way, Tuesday evening is the best time where we get the best results for our clients.
Oh, wow.
I think, well, why the end of the day? I think during the day, people, maybe they'll get the email, but they're so busy. You know, marketeers go to an awful lot of meetings. They're in and out of meetings, dealing with other things throughout the day. They might see your email, say, that sounds nice. And then, boom, off they go to a meeting,
and forget
answering
about
phone calls, whatever it is. We get a lot of responses written back from iPhones, etc., when people are sat on the train.
Right.
I found that an awful lot of marketing people, especially the senior ones, will live on the outskirts of London, maybe in Greater London, Surrey, etc. So we get a lot of those types of emails. So if you'd like, you can draft the emails during the day, but save them for the end of the day and then send them off.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Tuesday early evening.
Tuesday
late
early
afternoon,
evening.
early evening.
Definitely.
You heard it here first. Okay. Those poor marketeers out there are suddenly going to wonder what's hit them.
But it does work, and you should try to track it. I mean, I have heard people before have come onto courses say, you know, couldn't we get good results maybe on a Friday? People are in a good mood on a Friday. People are in a good mood on a Friday, but which is why we say to our team and to any agencies out there, pick up the phone on a Friday. I've never had someone be in a bad mood with me on a Friday. You automatically have that Friday feeling, and you can share that with the person. They're more likely to chat with you. Whereas with emails, if you receive one, even a really good new business email, and I get new business emails as well from people wanting to offer their services to Future Factory. I might receive it on a Friday. It makes me smile. We bring out the beers at 4:30 when my attention's gone, and I just want to enjoy the weekend. And then it's at the bottom of my to-do list, and I come in on a Monday in a bad mood, and I'm not a morning person, so in a bad mood, and then it's at the bottom of my list. So that's why we do it that way.
It's great that you've got so many years' experience of doing this, though, that you've actually got the data that you can prove what works
Absolutely.
and what doesn't work. That's fantastic. Tell us about the course. So I know I've sent several of my clients along when they've had a bit of fear about writing emails. How often do you do it, and when's the next one?
We offer it 3 times a year, and the next one's going to be in March.
In March. Okay, brilliant. So we're going to have a link through to the website with your details that we'll put on the blog, so people will be able to link through to that. And is it a half day?
It's a half-day course, so 4 hours. We do it in the mornings because we get better results, we think, in the mornings in terms of people focusing. So it's quite intensive. It's 4 hours. There are 2 trainers. It's myself and one of the account managers on the team called Alison, who has fantastic experience doing this type of thing day in, day out for her clients. I just wanted to say, the techniques that we teach in the session, they are the exact same techniques we use on behalf of all of our agencies. We've worked with over 300 over the course of the past 7 years. So we feel very confident that they get results. Another thing worth pointing out is, the Future Factory's ethos, we are so far removed from the Wolf of Wall Street, you have no idea. So for anyone who's feeling apprehensive about coming along and thinking, I don't believe in traditional sales techniques, please do come along, because neither do we. We don't believe those techniques suit our industry. We don't believe they get results. So it's a very research-based approach. It's very nuanced, and we would never ask someone to do anything they don't feel comfortable doing.
No. And you are, I can say, because I know I've worked with you before and I've worked with you with my clients as well, that you are like an agency rather than a sales team in terms of culture.
We work very hard to be like that, and there's not a single person on our team who has a traditional sales background. We all come from all different walks of life. Many of the team actually have been agency side. So it's a much more palatable way to learn how to do something which is perceived as being salesy, but it doesn't have to be.
No. Brilliant. Okay, Kimi, I'm really interested what the best piece of advice would be that you've ever been given in your career.
Okay, I hope this isn't too cliche, and it's actually something that, before my career, but that my dad used to say to me when I was young, and he's actually, he and my mum are in Florida now on holiday.
Lovely.
So his ears are going to be ringing, maybe. But he used to say, if you're 10 minutes early, you're early. If you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. And if you're on time, you're late. And I just think this has helped me on countless occasions, whether it be a new business meeting, a pitch, anything like that. So it's very, very useful, and it served me well.
I love that. You've just reminded me, I worked with a guy very early on in my career, and he said to me, if you're late, it's because you chose to be late. And it took me a while to get my head around that. But he said, you make a conscious decision not to be early, and by not making that decision, you've chosen to be late.
Interesting. So that's someone who'd get along with my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they
would hit
maybe they
it
were
off.
separated at birth.
Maybe it could be.
Brilliant. Okay. And is there a book or a TED Talk or a famous person that inspires you that you can share with us today?
There is. I'm a bit of a bibliophile, and one of the things I've read recently that I really enjoyed is You Are a Message, Meditations for the Creative Entrepreneur.
Oh, okay. Who's that by?
The author is Guillaume Wolf. Forgive my terrible American accent trying to pronounce a French name. But it's just a fantastic book. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a lot of fun, and it poses a lot of interesting questions that challenge the way you think about your business.
Cool. Okay. Well, we're going to give away a copy of that book to one of our lucky listeners. As always, you know what to do. Just join in the conversation on Twitter at Gunpowder Tweets using the Small Spark Theory hashtag, and we will pick a winner and send a copy of the book. Kimi, you've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your insight and your words of wisdom. We'll post a link to the Future Factory's training courses. There are other courses as well that are available. We'll put that in the blog, and let us know how you get on. But Kimi, thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me in.